Hello and welcome to another episode of Monday Morning Manager. My name is Dillon Meehan. I am a writer for City Xtra, and I am joined once again by the amazing Philcaso. I just want to check in with you, see how you're doing, as we're here to talk about Manchester City's 3-1 win over Bournemouth.
Excellent, bro. Some of the best types of wins, these ones right here with, I don't know, a team that plays like a big team but doesn't have the players to really punish you like a big team so you can test out these, like, I don't know, big match setups like we did. Can't beat it. My favorite.
Yeah, it's an interesting, obviously, they've never won at the Etihad, and historically, they've honestly never been a thorn in City's side. But after that win last season, it was just like, oh, Iriola, he's now one of those managers. He's the one that's going to give Pep a hard time. And so it is interesting. These games now feel like they're just going to have so much more tension for them, at least in the short term. It could be like a season or two from now, and they've never won again. And it was just like, oh, but this is such a weird result. But
Yeah.
it definitely was a kind of big-ish match in a way.
Yeah, I definitely think it was a big match, especially with them coming in second. You got to win. You got to take care of business. You got to beat the sides that you're supposed to beat, especially if we want to get to where we want to get. And I don't know. I just think it just shows you what a difference having a defensive midfielder in games like this makes. With someone like Nico versus missing Rodri all last year, we just get bullied off the park. So it was definitely nothing like that this time.
Do you want to talk about Nico first? Is that we had on our slate? We had him on there. Do you want to do that first? You kind of jumped at that opportunity.
I think he deserves it. I think that he's been exceptional. I mean, anytime that you're like watching a player and you have a Ballon d'Or winning defensive midfielder on the bench, and we're sitting here saying, you know what, take your time, take your time. It's all good. Obviously, we want Rodri back. He waltzes into the midfield. Don't get me wrong, but Nico is doing quite the impression at the moment. I mean, in terms of defensive ability, I think he's even surpassed what we really expect out of Rodri and stuff like that. He breaks up play at a very elite level, and I think all the statistics are showing that in terms of his duels won. But beyond his obvious strength on defense, his attacking play has taken an absolute leap this season. In terms of like ball carrying through the lines and passing through the lines, his statistics are up there with Elliot Anderson as being among the best this season in terms of just being a progressor from deep and finding these little intricate passes into Foden and into Cherki's feet, which we know is so critical to having both of them play well, especially Foden. When we saw in his Player of the Year season was largely, I don't want to give all the credit to Rodri, but it was highly associated with Rodri's ability to consistently play the ball into his feet in dangerous zones. And we're seeing a lot of that out of Nico now. I mean, he did that for the second Haaland goal. He plays it right into Foden's feet through a bunch of traffic. I mean, there's 3 or 4 guys around swarming to where I don't think when he first arrives, he makes this pass. So he's making this pass now.
Yeah.
Foden, easy little, chip ball to Cherki over the top. I mean, these are the passes that don't get any fanfare that actually make the move.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was no different for Haaland's first goal either. I mean, it's honestly, it's a little exaggerating, but it felt genius in the moment to even play that chip ball onto Cherki's head in all that traffic around him. To know your personnel like that in the heat of the moment is really special. I don't think you see that out of every player. So, yeah, I couldn't be more happy with what we're seeing out of Nico G, and I definitely think he deserves a chance to play with Rodri as well. Not when Rodri comes back, he's just back on the bench permanently.
Yeah, I'm very curious with the when Rodri returns. The other side of it though is, I don't know how long it may take for Rodri to really fully return. I think there's a really good chance that, he's going to get in and out, recovering from this ACL injury. And I think that Nico is going to be relied on pretty heavily. And even at the very least, it's Rodri being able to come off after 60 minutes, after 70 minutes, which was never really an option for City beforehand, unless it was City are 4-0 up, 5-0 up. Like they're just absolutely thrashing whoever the opposition is. And it wasn't as big of a deal for Rodri to be on. I think that's going to be the major difference. If, Rodri can turn 90s into 70s, I think that's how we can really, kind of see him ease back into that form.
Yeah, and I think not only turning 90s into 70s, but I know we saw it one time already this year, to everybody, including myself's disappointment, Rodri playing 3 matches in a week, like we saw in that really hellacious stretch we had in September. And I just think that shouldn't happen anymore. And I think that the club and some of the quotes that came out after Rodri re-aggravated his injuries were kind of alluding to that they didn't want to do that anymore. And I think that's going to be super critical to, like you said, lengthening not only this season, but his career here. And,
Yeah.
his longevity.
Absolutely. I mean, other than I guess Nico Gonzalez, I think the other player that I think absolutely deserves to be the first person we talk about is Rayan Cherki. So it's his first Premier League start since Spurs. It's the second start after kind of having the big show against Swansea. And I mean, look, we've kind of talked about him before as maybe there was going to need to be a little bit of like a bleeding in period. He's someone that clearly there's a lot of talent. There's so much ability there, but is he really going to be able to come in immediately and kind of take over? And while I don't think he absolutely took over the game, he really, for the most part, those 2 assists were the main chances that he did create. But 2 assists, him and Foden seemingly easily being able to play together. I just kind of want to know what your thoughts were on Shirky's, I guess, first start more out wide and how you now think he's going to fit in this Pep team.
Well, I sure appreciate the alley for this oop on the out wide part because if you've been watching for a while, you probably know that this is something that I've been thinking would be the solution to getting him and Foden the best out of them for the entire season. I understand why you see someone like Cherki with all his creative abilities and think that he needs to be in the center. I absolutely do. And especially after seeing the 2 assists that he had to Haaland, both came from central zones. But this is kind of the idea with Cherki. I mean, having him start out wide to where he can give away the ball like we saw him do, you know, honestly, maybe a little too much. And I think that might have been why he got subbed for Bernardo, was giving the ball away, trying to make something special happen every single time he touched it. Reminds me of the quote where Pep said to Phil a few years ago, "You don't need to be Phil Foden in every action." I feel like there's going to be a few of those conversations with Rayan Cherki probably down the line, but I honestly wouldn't want to change too much with what we're getting out of him because it was exceptional. His vision is special. Most players do not see the passes that he is seeing on the pitch. I mean, to receive that ball that Foden barely knew was coming to him that I spoke about earlier with Nico Gonzalez, and Foden one times it to him, and for him to have like half a second to see the ball coming to him and to see the run that Haaland's making and to decide to make that chip ball for the second assist. I mean, I mentioned it's a lot like Cole Palmer before. I see them as very similar players in terms of their implementation. Palmer is also a right winger who comes in and does that 10 type of thing, but doesn't really like to stay out wide. They're magic. It's genius. It's everything that you want when you're a football fan in terms of your forward line, and it's a lot of what hasn't been being provided by Savino and Bob out wide in terms of output along with the performance. And yeah, I think that the way that things are looking right now, I think he has a really strong shot and honestly kind of a clear runway to becoming our first 11 right winger as long as, Mateus Nunes can stay healthy and enable this type of system.
Yeah, I guess that's the interesting part too is that with him coming inside is there then needs to be someone to make that, outside run, which is what Nunes then kind of is. And I look, we're not the first people to talk about the 2-3-5. Luke Dobbins has put out a video on it already. But I think if you are familiar with City's like tactical setup over the Pep years, it's either with, yes, it's always a 4-3-3 or some kind of variant of that. And then when they're, technically then in possession, sometimes it's 2 at the back, sometimes it's 3 at the back. A lot of times it's like a diamond midfield where they have someone else stepping in. And this time you're looking at more of, I guess, what you would have said, like a 2-3-5, and less so a diamond. To me, it seemed more like a box almost in a way, with Doku and Shirky kind of basically stepping in to be essentially attacking midfielders, and then O'Reilly and Nunes kind of going out wide. Obviously, I don't think you can run this with every team, depending on, no disrespect to Tyler Adams as an American, I love him, but he's not like and he is a decent ball winner, but he's not like a Onana type or where someone where they're just going to wreak absolute havoc on smaller midfielders. Do you think that this might be that kind of setup that we're going to see from City more moving forward?
I personally see this as a system that does scale to larger big matches. I think that this is almost how we get our smaller, less dual heavy players into a match like that, to where we're going to come up against absolute monsters such as like a Caicedo and an Anana, as you mentioned, or a Declan Rice, Kamavinga, all these types of midfielders that we might see in the later stages of the Champions League. I don't think that we have any players other than Rodri and Nico who can really consistently duel with them. So I do think that the solution may be packing the midfield as we did. Like you said, it's hard to even know if it was a box because we really had like 6 or 7 players that felt like swarming around the midfield areas at all times, which I personally like it. It reminds me of the City of old. It reminds me of those 2021 City teams with the false nine, where we just had so many players picking up so many positions that the defenders can't really get a handle on them throughout a match. It doesn't become repetitive. It's not in a pattern. I think that that's really good in terms of breaking down low blocks, especially. So yeah, I definitely think it's a scalable thing, and I definitely think it's scalable if you're going to have Rodri and Nico at the base of that midfield instead of
Yeah.
someone like Bernardo. I think Bernardo played his role well, but I think if you have a real dual winner in those spots, I think this team can compete with anybody in the center of the park.
Yeah, I think the amount of bodies in the center I think is a good part because both of those goals do come from like a defender getting pulled out and then it's just Haaland one on one. And I mean he's going to win that 99 times out of 100 and it kind of led to both of the goals. I guess the only other kind of part with go for it, jump.
No, I was just gonna say, I do think that with all this talk about how our system is working great and this and that, I do think it's pretty important to mention that the setup from Bournemouth was
Yeah.
woeful. It was woeful for playing a team like or with Erling Haaland. I mean, you don't have anybody who can run with him. You don't have anybody who can duel with him, and you're gonna play a system that consistently has your center backs doing a sprint from the halfway line to your back. I mean, it's not great, but it is great that this system isn't able to be played against us pretty much. I doubt we see a system exactly like this
Yeah.
again, and I think that that gives us an advantage knowing what we're going to play going forward.
Yeah, I mean I think it does make it, I guess, feel a little bit better against teams that are going to have to come out and play. When you think of like a Real Madrid or a later stage Champions League team, I don't want to say Arsenal, but like potentially like slots Liverpool, we're going to see next week. Like if you were going to come out and be a little aggressive, obviously I think Virgil van Dijk is a little bit better than
I think
the
so.
Bournemouth's defense, but I think it's one of those things of like, hey, this is a system that can potentially work. And while, look, I would love to see Van Dijk and Holland in a foot race. I do think Holland wins that, but I would also love to see Van Dijk's like refusal to actually make a move and just the two of them running for 45 yards and
Or
it's just
off.
make the first move. Yeah. So it's one of those where I guess I feel better in that way. It's like, yes, not every team is going to play this super aggressively, but the good teams probably will for the most part. And I think that's what makes it a little bit more interesting.
Yeah, it's nice to know that we have a solution for these matches. I felt that we were rather hopeless in Big Six matches and in the Champions League last year. So having a trend even towards a solution is something I'll very much take.
Yeah, so I guess the only other thing we kind of touched on it, there are very few players that have been locks in a Pep Guardiola team. I mean, it was obviously with the midfield of like Silva, De Bruyne, Fernandinho, and then obviously when it then just became, like Rodri and De Bruyne and, Holland, there's very few times, I guess Diaz and Stones at times, but there's not a lot of like, hey, this is your position in this team. And I don't want to say, hey, now that he's made 3 or 4 starts for Manchester City, is he now City's starting right winger? But this is back-to-back starts now of really good performances, of getting goal productions in both games. Do you think that we might now start to see Cherki play consistently in that right wing spot? And is this now kind of his spot to lose, at least in the short term?
I think it's early for the playing time to probably reflect his status in the pecking order in terms of everybody's still going to get reps this early in the season. It's not to the point in the run into where every result is like absolutely critical and we have to play our first 11 every time. So I think that the other guys will get minutes, but I definitely think that I don't see how he's not. He's I'm a huge Bob fan. I'm a huge Savinho fan. I always have been. I'm massive believers in their ability, but in terms of what they're providing right now, not even in terms of just the raw output which Turkey has over them, but in terms of what I'm seeing with my eyes, Turkey platforms the players around him to a greater degree than these guys. I feel like Bob and Savinho have been more passengers in the sense of they're waiting for to capitalize off of other players on the pitch, creating a moment of magic, versus Turkey creates those moments of magic himself. And I think
Yeah.
that I would rather have another player creating those moments of magic and have one of those players that can create magic be the ones capitalizing on it. I would rather have Haaland and Foden be my players that are capitalizing on magic
Yeah.
versus having to create it themselves, because I think that that's the best role they're in. So I think that Doku does another great job of providing that as well, and he had another great match against Bournemouth. But just having this magic from both sides for our players in the middle, and especially with somebody like Reinders coming in who likes to crash the box, just another player that will benefit a lot from having another difference maker out wide. And not to say that Savinho can't do it. We saw him have bonkers creative numbers last season, but I mean, we just have to, I think, face reality a little bit in terms of what we're being provided by these players this season.
Yeah, as the system gets more and more reliant on Haaland, I think it makes more sense to have just another game breaker. Essentially, it's not De Bruyne-esque because they're very different players in terms of what they can do on the ball, but in terms of just seemingly being able to create from nothing, or being the one that has not only like the guts to play a ball like that, but then the ability from both feet. It does feel like this is maybe becoming a little bit like it's his time to kind of, as long as obviously he plays to that level, but this is going to be his position.
I feel like he's at his floor right now. I'm seeing him make mistakes that he didn't make for Leon, in not in pressurized situations. It's not like a Florian Wirtz situation to where I'm seeing this guy overwhelmed and swallowed up by the physicality. We saw a little bit of that against Spurs when he was played in the middle, but that was a not a very favorable situation for Cherki. In these positions out wide that he's been picking up, or even against Swansea where he was in the middle and drifting wide quite a bit, I think we're seeing him in a lot of the positions where I would expect him to thrive. And I think that once he starts to understand the players around him better and better, I think that, sky's the limit with him, because obviously, like you said, he has all the talent off of both feet. I mean, being able to play line breaking through balls with both feet is good enough from anywhere. But in a team like City, to where you're going to have runners from the midfield and Haaland constantly available for you to play through, it almost seems unfair. And this isn't even, we haven't even seen a match yet to where he has, you know, Marmoush on the left wing, Haaland in the middle, Foden behind him, Reinders also in midfield, and Cherki on the right wing. I mean, you're giving this guy five options that will be absolutely clinical when they get their chances. I think that, you know, I said on Twitter just yesterday, I mean, this guy could put up video game numbers. It would not surprise me. 20 assists is very much within the realm of possibility for him if he gets the amount of starts to where, he deserves, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, well, he's already quickly approaching that 20 assist number. When you when you look at what is it? It's four starts, 7 goals and assists already. When you factor in the Club World Cup, so it's definitely, as long as he stays healthy, which he has not proven to yet, but that's well within his grasp, I feel.
Yeah, I think it's good that he's different to Doku in a way, to where Doku's so explosive and is that type of player that I'm almost kind of just waiting for the points in the season to where, okay, that hamstring, it's not gonna make it 12 months, doing that type of explosive movement. But Turkey's not that type of player to where, he's mainly playing from a standstill more often, or moving in between the lines and stuff like that, instead of trying to burst past his man. Or at least so far, that hasn't been his play style. I saw a little bit of that at Lyon, where he's able to dribble his man, but we've seen less of it here. So, but still, I think that he's a less injury prone type of player. So I would like to see him establish himself and be a pillar of the starting 11, as you said. There aren't very many of them.
Moving away from Turkey, the other player that I kind of want to talk about is Foden. I think that look, Foden midfield has been a talking point since 2017. It has just been a when is it going to happen?
Man.
Is it never going to? Yeah.
What a ride. Absolutely. Oh my goodness. The wars that I fought.
We are now staring down the barrel of 6 consecutive 90s in the Premier League with him playing in midfield. The Premier League tweets out a video of look at Pep celebrating Nico O'Reilly's goal, and but there was a certain thing he was celebrating, and it was Phil, and they didn't include that bit in the clip, but he says Phil beforehand, and he blows him a kiss as he kind of holds off 2 players before letting Nico O'Reilly through for the assist. I mean, we've talked about it before, but just, is this Foden in this new form, even like an even better version of where, look, he walks away with an assist, but he also had his idol, the David Silva pre-assist for the 2 other goals as well. And so I guess I'm just going to kick it over to you with your namesake being what it is, and just kind of talk about what it's like to see this version of Phil Foden.
I think it's exceptional. I mean, I think anybody who's really closely followed Phil Foden, like in his career and all the sound bites that come out about him, knew that this was always a possibility, him being in a deeper role. I believe it might have been in 2023. Pep comes out and he says, I would like to see him play in that second midfielder role.
Yeah.
Everybody jumps on the quote, says, I don't see it, I don't know, blah, blah, blah. And then it just kind of goes dark on that front for a while as he gets to play this false winger role that we're now seeing Cherki in. He played for that entire Player of the Year season, and obviously Player of the Year. He did quite well in the role, but I do always feel like this was Pep's true vision for him as a player, being more of a controlled attacking midfielder in terms of keeping things ticking in that more Barcelona Pedri mold. I think that that's exactly what Pep really has wanted in this team for quite a while. Probably honestly, since David Silva left the team, he probably has wanted a player that really fills this role. I understand Gundogan is kind of this type of player, but not really for me. He's a little bit different of a type of player in terms of his creativity. But yeah, I think that Foden has been exceptional. And I think he does the things in midfield that maybe Cherki doesn't do right now. And I think that that's maybe why you see the way that they're set up out there currently. Foden doesn't give away the ball. When you're looking at a Foden, sofa score sheet after a match, a lot of times in the good matches that we play, you'll see he has as many chances created as misplaced passes. And I think that that's really the security that we're looking for in the middle of the pitch. I mean, there's a reason Bernardo Silva continues to get starts week after week, even as his creative numbers dwindle and his goal numbers dwindle. It doesn't matter because he keeps the ball and he works his ass off. And that's what Phil Foden does now as well. I mean, if you look at any of his ground coverage stats as well as his duel stats, they're exceptional. He's top 5 in terms of ground covered for midfielders in the Prem, I believe, this year, as if I saw the statistic correctly, as well as in matches where we're losing the battle in midfield, such as against Aston Villa. He's 6 of 8 in his ground duels in that match, which is just,
Crazy.
it's mind blowing to think that this is what we're getting out of Phil Foden at this point. So, obviously he's not even scoring goals yet. And I do think that this is very much something that he's going to figure out how to score goals from the position that he's in. Because this is just his nature. He has every finish in the book in terms of this. And it almost came off for him against Bournemouth. He had the shot blocked that looked like it was going in, and, he made the run into the box. So, yeah, I think that him and Cherki, there's been a lot of comparisons. I know Nobbins, as you mentioned earlier, he had mentioned that maybe this is the David Silva, Kevin De Bruyne reincarnation in its new way. And I definitely think that it's fair to have expectations on these guys to that level because that is the responsibility I think that they're going to be given.
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming also people have probably seen the. I'm guessing it's OG Pinions. I have no idea actually the pronunciation, but just a fantastic compilation video. Yes, just an absolutely S tier account to follow on Twitter. But you put out like a basically 3-minute long video of them working together, and it's kind of wild when you consider this is their first start together. Everything else was just substitute appearances from the two of them, and if they're going to find a way to be able to work like this, granted, it's just one game, but it does feel like it gets that similar like Silva De Bruyne type of feelings.
Has any pair of players gelled this quickly other than De Bruyne and Haaland?
Yeah, De Bruyne and Haaland is the only where it was like from the jump, you're like, oh, okay.
These guys have he did a quote afterwards, and I said it was 490s. I'm pretty sure he tallied up the minutes, and it was like 231 or something like that in terms of minutes that they've actually been on the pitch together. And you're putting together a pretty quality 3-minute compilation of their actions and their incisive, impactful actions. Like these guys were built to play with each other. That's why it has done nothing but drive me absolutely bonkers, insane to see the amount of City fans online that want to just pit these guys against each other in some sort of one has to play and one has to sit way.
Remember the videos when they were lobbing the ball back and forth to each other?
Yes, and he's
and
jealous.
everyone.
Foden's so jealous of him. I was like, dude, what are you talking? Like anybody that had watched Foden for years, they're like, this is Foden's pre-match routine. I remember him doing it with Grealish too, like them just passing it basically the full length of the pitch, like at the Bernabeu before the match. And the legend from Juve, I can't remember his name right now, is on the side of the pitch giving Foden props. It's like this is not new. Like this is who these guys are, and I don't know. I think that this type of player plays better when you can get as many of these types of players on the pitch as possible. I would love for Cherky to be able to play in midfield with Foden, so you could get another like Oscar Bob on the pitch, just another tight, just as many of these tight space players as you can get.
Yeah.
Doku's another one who's been really evolving in this space. So yeah, I think that the system is 100% set up for these guys to thrive, and I think Pep's really been slow playing it with Cherky, but I think his hand is beginning to be forced in that regard in terms of when these players see who's performing. If you try to sandbag it, I mean, you're going to lose credibility. So, and that's obviously something Pep will never do. He'll play the best players, in my opinion. He will do that. So, yeah, I think we're going to start to see Turkey get quite a run here.
If he starts at right wing against Liverpool, man, that's, and I think
I
he
like
will.
it.
Like I do,
I
I
like
do,
it.
and I think he will. And especially with, look, I mean, Kirkes has not been lighting the world on fire, and
If it's Robertson
it's
too, I mean, either
yeah,
one. I mean, Robertson was a horror at points last year, so yeah, I really like it. I know now that we've set it into the ether. Okay, we're seeing 90 minutes of Savinho, but
yeah,
it's I would love to see that as well. I think that Liverpool lineup is going to be very interesting in terms of I don't know. Obviously, we have Dortmund beforehand, which will color the lineup in terms of who plays in which one. I would guess that there would
yeah.
be less overlap than we would think in those two lineups, but still, I think that yeah, we have some very important decisions coming up in terms of who's going to play where and when. And yeah, I'm very excited for that.
I am glad the game at least is taking place on a Sunday, so just you're going to get a little bit more of a break in between for people that might play both games. And I'm looking at the standings real quick. Dortmund are actually they are ahead of City on goal difference. So Dortmund are sixth, City are seventh, both with 7 points. Which I didn't realize that Dortmund had been doing this well in Champions League play.
We pretty much have to win. In my opinion,
Yeah,
we probably have to win, especially given how we saw last year, how tight it gets at the end of these things, and given the fact that we've dropped points previously in this competition already this year. I think that this is probably a game you prioritize over the Liverpool game in terms of getting a result. But obviously you want to have both of them. But the Liverpool game's
yeah,
less of a make or break in my opinion.
yeah. Because then it's Leverkusen, Real Madrid,
Good
Bodo
God.
Glimt, and and Galatasaray.
At least Leverkusen have been
To,
terrible this year.
yeah,
So
at least they've on. It's honestly shocking. Everyone was wanting to like clown Ten Hag, and he was far from the problem there. I mean, I
Echeverry,
just think
your agent and you are never being listened to ever again, my brother. I hope you enjoy Girona next season, my pal. Got to follow the Naipan
is
route.
there is looking good as a small aside. Just looking
Top player. I'm looking forward to getting him back
Yeah,
next year in the summer, seeing him do the little summer thing where we give him minutes here and there. Oh yeah,
yeah.
big time.
Anyone else you wanna shout out before we close this up?
I think Nico O'Reilly's been great. I know we had mentioned maybe wanted to talk about him a little bit. I think he's almost undroppable, probably in terms of how he's playing right now. I'm cautious to
Which is
say this
crazy.
because yeah, I said it about Doku, and then Doku proceeded to get married and then not play good football for like a month after that. So I'm cautious, but he's back too. Anyways, I don't want to get anything twisted with that. I don't know Doku fans don't come for me. I know you guys are serious, but Nico O'Reilly, what I mean, the defending, it continues to surprise me how good he is in defense
It's
and locking down
unbelievable.
a winger 1v1. I mean, Nunes as well. I feel like maybe a mention of him, considering he had the toughest matchup with Semenyo.
Yeah.
Semenyo did nothing. I forgot he was
Non-existent.
playing for a while.
Which
Yeah,
is unbelievable. I don't this sounds so bad. I don't want to give Nunes credit. Like I want to. I honestly really do, and I'm very happy for how well that he's been playing. But I'm still just waiting for the mistake to happen. I'm still just expecting
the
the
Crystal
mistake to
Palace moment.
happen. Yeah. And it's just not. And I'm kind of blown away.
I hope that he can keep it up. I would love for when we're going shopping for a right back next summer, which we will do regardless of his performance. I promise you that. It's like, but still, I think that I would love to have another option, available in the squad. So we're not buying somebody that has to come in and be the first team option right away, guaranteed. Like I think that that's really good. It'll be just like with the left back situation with Aiton Marie and O'Reilly. So yeah, I think that they're exceptional. Obviously, the center backs, Ruben Diaz, my homeboy. I'm very impressed with what you've been providing recently in terms of aerial duel wins, even. Which, if he's winning his aerial duels, I have no complaints about you. Keep doing you, because that's pretty much only his only fault for me right now. So outstanding team win.
To take it back to O'Reilly, it was wild to think when Aiton Marie goes down and the first time, and you just get worried that like another season, another like just fullback debacle. And yeah, I know O'Reilly played there last year, but it didn't seem like it was necessarily going to be sustainable. And he's absolutely looked right at home, to the point where I think it's really going to force Aiton Marie to really step up and be phenomenal on the ball. And I don't know, it's not what I would have expected. That after eight, when he came in, I was like, oh well, this is Nico O'Reilly. Like we'll always remember those 6 months. Here he is still at 20 years old. It does feel like the sky's the limit.
I haven't heard many people talk about it online or anything, but when Aiton Marie he came on and he played eight. He played in the eight.
Yeah,
He didn't
yeah,
play at left back. He came on to play at the eight, which I think, I don't know. I don't want to read into things too much early in the season, obviously, but I think it is indicative of, let's see if we got another couple of spots that we could get this guy some minutes in, just in
yeah, yeah.
case, because Nico O'Reilly's looking pretty undroppable. So I would hate for him to get completely frozen out. I think that that's got to be go into their thought process a little bit. If you're bringing him on for a 5-minute eight cameo at the end of a match, let's get him on somewhere. So,
Yeah.
hey, I love Aiton Marie. I was one of his biggest proponents of getting him signed, but you can't drop Nico O'Reilly if he's playing like this. I mean,
Which
there's
is
not a
it's just nuts.
yeah. I'm so happy we get one of these guys out of the academy every year. I say it all the time. I mean, once he graduates to defensive midfield from this left back role, if he ever does, I mean, if he keeps playing at this level, maybe he won't ever leave the position. But
Yeah.
if he does, I hope Newcastle enjoys playing left back, man, because we need another one. I don't know. That's where they got to come through.
It's going to be another version of the photo. That 2020 youth FA Cup team was making the rounds with like Cole Palmer, Liam Delap, all these guys in, and they're scattered all over England for the most part. And I feel like we might get another one of those photos, in 2030.
Hopefully we can keep more of them this time. I would love to actually keep, like, I don't know, like upwards of 10% this time. That would be outstanding. And especially the really good ones, like Cole Palmer, possibly. That would be nice.
Yeah.
Would love to. Absolutely would be grand to have that guy, but next time.
I digress.
Yeah. Don't get me started. Cole Palmer.
The only, I guess, negative thing that I want to talk about from this match is the Bournemouth goal. There's not a lot of times where I get mad anymore while watching City play. Like I used to get like super frustrated and feel us against the world, like all of those like very like cliche feelings. I felt that with the Bournemouth goal. And it isn't, look, Donnarumma should have been better at getting the ball out of there and did a terrible job with the punch. I will never jive with just clearly fucking with someone in the box, like getting behind them. He's got his fucking arm wrapped around him, like getting up and under players like that. That's just, to me, it's not what the sport is. I know Arsenal have been doing it to like a ridiculous level of success. I know that goalkeepers are always going to be crowded to some extent, but I fucking hated it when Harry Kane did it. I don't like it when Bernardo does it. Like, I don't like these, like, I'm going to get up and under this person. It's not, to me, like, sporting, to use like a phrase I don't normally like, but I was livid. I really is one of the very few times where I texted you about it too. I was like, I'm pissed. This is very rarely am I like actually upset about something. And I had it.
Yeah, I think you're a little bit more charitable, I think, to Gigi than I am, because that punch was woeful. I mean, it was bad. But I 100% agree about the dark arts thing. I know that the dark arts have their fans on online. You know, the it's part of the game brigade. I know there's some very smart people who feel that way, so I don't want to completely dismiss it. But I'm 100% with you. Where's the line? Why do we have a portion of the game that's left up to each individual ref's interpretation broadly in that sense? Not they're interpreting a specific, oh, was his hand far away from his body or anything. No, they're interpreting what is what is like dark arts, what is allowed in this situation. He's grabbing his arm right then. How is that not a automatic stop with VAR? Like I feel like that automatically in the era where we have replay should be a stop. You did a foul. That is a foul. The fact that you stopped fouling him just before he's able to leap doesn't really change the fact for me that it's a foul. So, yeah, obviously, I agree with you. I think that this is not a popular opinion, I think, to voice because I think it comes off as salty, especially given the fact that Arsenal is relying on this recently. So it's like, yeah, of course you hate what your chief title rival is doing to get all their points. But yes, I do think it is against the spirit of the game. And I do think that it causes problems in terms of these games aren't being refereed in a consistent manner in that regard. And I think that is the key. It has to be.
Yeah, it drives me nuts. I'm not against dark arts overall. Like I think there's a level to it. But yeah, when you are just when you're just like holding on to an arm for dear life, that's the line. That's the line. And yeah.
Yeah, you prevented him from I don't know, like the guy from Bournemouth, maybe I just got to give him credit because he did it perfect, dude. He like held it just long enough to where they would let it go. Because if he held it a little bit longer, they're going to be like, he is clearly obstructing him. But I guess he just did it right. But yeah, I would like to see that get changed. But
and it sucks, man. That's Tyler Adams.
It's the tush push.
I didn't want to make the comparison. It is the tush push. It is the tush push. It's exactly what that is. It's like, this isn't the sport. I'm not watching rugby. Like I'm not. This isn't like it is just a different sport.
It's technically legal, but it goes against the spirit of the sport, and I think that we should legislate those things out. I don't know. It's like, it's not good.
And I feel bad. It was Tyler Adams' first Premier League goal. Like, want to be happy for an American. Want to be happy for him getting his moment. And I was pissed. I was livid.
First goal since 2021, I heard, which is USMNT. Let's go. It's
we're gonna win the World Cup, man.
Oh, the LeBron James of soccer and Tyler Adams carrying us over the top, man. We're ready. But yeah, it was. Gigi needs to do better, but also the referees could do better. It was a calamity. I'm glad that it didn't come back to actually haunt us in any real way. That's one we can just chuck away and forget about. It doesn't have to be a Bruno versus City in the treble season type of memory for us.
All right, man. But yeah, that's the show. I want to thank Freddie. I want to thank Jordan, as always, for.
Did you buy the channel?
To use the channel. Have not. Haven't secured the funds yet. So talking to a few people.
Okay.
Getting a few different partners involved, and we'll see. Maybe we'll put some dollars and cents together, but not yet.
Good to know. It's always great being on here with you, man. Yeah, thank you to everybody for having us on. I also didn't buy the channel, so channel's still in the same ownership. Yeah, currently working on my funds.
Yeah. All right. See you, buddy.